The world is burning. The Middle East is on fire. The United States and Israel are bombing Iran. Hundreds of innocent people have lost their lives. And right at the moment when everyone went silent, when world leaders stepped back out of fear, Africa's boldest man stepped up to the microphone. Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Do you know what Traoré said? Burkina Faso is ready to provide military assistance if Iran requests it. The days of Americans escaping punishment are over. Read that sentence again. Think about it again. A 37-year-old leader of a country with a population of 23 million is challenging the world's greatest superpower. Without fear, without hesitation, with his chest held high. If you are watching this video, if you know Traoré, if you respect this man's courage, there is only one thing you need to do right now. Hit that like button. Right now, this very second. This video will carry Traoré's voice to millions, but only with your support. And I promise you, there is information at the end of this video that will completely change everything you thought you knew about Traoré. If you love this man, if you believe in Africa's awakening, you must stay until the very end, because what I will reveal in the final section is something no mainstream media will ever tell you. Are you ready? Let's begin. On the morning of February 28th, the world woke up to a shocking headline. Israel, with the full backing of the United States, launched a comprehensive military operation against Iran. Months of escalating tension, diplomatic talks, negotiations in Geneva, all of it was thrown in the trash in a single moment. The attacks have now entered their fourth day. Violent explosions continue across Iranian territory. Civilian casualties are rising. According to official figures, 787 people have lost their lives. 787 human beings, women, children, the elderly. And that number is climbing every single hour. Israel has announced its decision to expand its ground occupation in Lebanon. The war is growing, it is spreading, and Western powers, as always, have the word peace on their lips while pumping fuel into the flames of war. So what are world leaders doing? Most of them are silent. They release condemnation statements, express their deep concern, and then sit back down in their comfortable chairs. No concrete action, no courage, nothing. But there is one man who is different. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, at this critical moment, while the entire world watches, openly declared his side. Burkina Faso is ready to provide military assistance if Iran requests it. This is not an ordinary diplomatic statement. This is the leader of a small African nation openly challenging the most powerful military alliance on Earth, against the United States and Israel, against NATO, against the entire military might of the West. The days of Americans escaping punishment are over. These words are not easy to say. There is a price for saying them. We all know what has happened to leaders who said things like this. We know about Gaddafi. We know about Saddam. We know about Sankara. But Traoré is not afraid. Because Traoré is a leader who lives for his people and is ready to die for his people. This declaration is not just a message of support for Iran. This is a call to the entire global South. A call that says, enough is enough. A call that says, we are here too. A call that says, we will not bow to imperialism. To understand Traoré, you need to know his story. He is 37 years old, one of the youngest heads of state in the world. He came to power in 2022, and from the day he arrived, he has made decisions that have shaken the entire African continent. But Traoré is not an ordinary military leader. He is the man carrying the legacy of Thomas Sankara. Sankara, the legendary leader who governed Burkina Faso starting in 1983, who put the interests of the people above everything else, who stood against imperialism with every breath. Sankara was assassinated in 1987 through a Western-backed coup. He was only 34 years old, and now 37-year-old Traoré is trying to complete the revolution that Sankara left unfinished. The same courage, the same determination, the same love for the people. In the eyes of his supporters, Traoré is a reformist and fearless leader who rejects the system that sells his country's resources to imperialist powers and prioritizes the people's interests above all else. His fight against French neo-colonialism, his radical decisions, and his sweeping reforms have turned him into a figure striving to rewrite not only the fate of his own country, but the destiny of an entire continent. Now look at what Traoré has accomplished in the last 3 years. Each one of these is a revolution on its own. He closed French military bases. French soldiers who had been stationed on Burkina Faso's soil for over a century had to pack their bags and leave. Think about that. An African country telling its former colonizer to get out, and the colonizer actually leaving. He restricted Western companies' mining privileges. Burkina Faso's gold, uranium, manganese, for years, European companies were extracting them for practically nothing. Traoré put an end to that. He halted the export of unprocessed gold to Europe. He changed street names left over from the colonial era. Streets that carried the names of French generals and colonizers now bear the names of local heroes. This is not just a name change. This is a declaration of identity. It says, "We are not your colony. We are the owners of our own history." He banned second-hand clothing imports from the United States. Why? Because these clothes were killing the local textile industry. African tailors, African weavers, African designers could not find work. Traoré said, "We will produce our own clothes ourselves." While distancing from the West, Traoré did not leave a vacuum. He built strategic alliances. He signed military cooperation agreements with Russia. He developed economic partnerships with China. He strengthened relations with Iran. And yes, he also grew closer to Turkey. Traoré rejects the unipolar world order. He is looking for alternatives to the system imposed by the United States. His greatest move was the alliance of Sahel states, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. These 3 countries broke away from ECOWAS and established their own union, the Alliance of Sahel States, known as AES. This is the beginning of a new era in Africa, an independent structure that serves as an alternative to Western-controlled regional organizations. Understand what AES means. These 3 countries are building their own security architecture, establishing their own economic unions, and determining their own futures, free from the influence of France, the United States, and the European Union. And Traoré assumed the rotating chairmanship of this alliance. At 37 years old, he is leading Africa's most strategic regional formation. Traoré is not only making revolutions in the military and diplomatic arena, he is transforming the economy as well. He cut the salaries of members of parliament and government ministers by 30%. Think about this for a moment. In which country do politicians voluntarily cut their own salaries? Traoré did it, because he said, "When the people are hungry, leaders cannot live in luxury." In return, he raised civil servant salaries by 50%. Teachers, doctors, public workers, the servants of the people were rewarded. He paid off the debts owed to the IMF and the World Bank. This is a monumental step. The IMF and the World Bank are institutions that have trapped dozens of African countries in debt cycles, interest upon interest, conditional loans, structural adjustment programs. Traoré broke that chain. He distributed hundreds of tractors and pieces of equipment to boost agricultural productivity. For the first time, the farmers of Burkina Faso gained access to modern farming tools. Productivity is increasing. Food security is being established. And here is the most striking figure of all. According to ISS African Futures, Burkina Faso's economy has an average growth potential of 8% between 2025 and 2043. This means an increase of $1,120 in per capita income, and it means lifting 2.4 million people out of poverty. 2.4 million people. Let that sink in. 2.4 million mothers, fathers, children escaping poverty. That is what Traoré's revolution looks like in real numbers. Now let us get to the real point. Why is Traore's statement of support for Iran so important? Because this is not just about Iran. This is a signal of a new world order. For years, the United States and its allies would bomb any country they wanted, overthrow any government they chose, and plunder any resources they desired. And no one would say a word, because everyone was afraid. Traoré is shattering that fear. When he says, "The days of Americans escaping punishment are over," he is sending a message to the entire world. There are now people who will hold you accountable. This courage is contagious. As Traoré speaks, other leaders across Africa are finding their own courage. In Niger, in Mali, in South Africa, in Algeria, voices against imperialism are rising. Africa is waking up. And the strongest voice of this awakening is Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Traoré's support for Iran is not coincidental. Over the past 2 years, there has been a serious rapprochement between Burkina Faso and Iran. Iran has been providing support to Burkina Faso in agricultural technology, energy projects, and defense. Diplomatic visits have been exchanged. Trade agreements have been signed. There is a shared vision between Traoré and the Iranian leadership, an independent stance against Western hegemony. Both countries have been subjected to unilateral American sanctions. Both countries have a tradition of resistance against imperialism. And now, in the middle of a war, Traoré is confirming this relationship in the strongest possible terms. The offer of military assistance? This is not a diplomatic gesture. This is a declaration of strategic alliance. Do you know how Western media portrays Traoré? They call him a coup leader. They call him authoritarian. They call him undemocratic. But there are things they never tell you. They never tell you how much Traoré is loved by his own people. They never show you the tens of thousands who flood the streets of Ouagadougou in support of Traoré. They never explain how the reforms sweeping the country are improving the quality of life for ordinary citizens. Because Traoré's story disrupts the Western narrative. The West says, Africa cannot develop without our guidance. Traoré says, Africa develops when the imperialists leave. And the numbers back Traoré up. Economic growth, agricultural productivity, investments in education and healthcare, all of them are rising. The Western narrative that Traoré is destroying the country is collapsing. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, at 37 years old, is leading a revolution. Not just in Burkina Faso, but across the entire African continent. A leader who closed French military bases, paid off IMF debts, raised his people's wages, renamed colonial streets, broke away from ECOWAS to build his own alliance, and is now openly defying the world's greatest superpower. The days of Americans escaping punishment are over. That sentence will go down in history, and the man who said it will go down in history. Now, I want to ask you a question, and I want you to write your answer in the comments. Do you think Traoré's declaration of support for Iran was the right decision? Is this courage worth admiring? And what can other world leaders learn from Traoré? I am waiting for your comments. I read every single one. I value every single one. And if you enjoyed this video, if you want Traoré's voice to reach more people, subscribe, turn on notifications, share this video in your WhatsApp groups, on Twitter, on Instagram, because mainstream media will not cover these stories. It is our duty to amplify this voice. At Traoré Command, we are here. We will continue telling the real stories of Africa. We will continue raising the voices of leaders who stand against imperialism. Until the next video, with love from Traoré Command.